Welcome to Moments with Mary Ann. Allow me to interrupt your train of thought with something that may be one of the most interesting things you hear today. This is Mary Ann Pastana, and our special guest today is both John David and Anna Gabriel Mann, who are here to share with us the latest book in the Go-Giver series, The Go-Giver Marriage. So John is the co-author of more than 30 books, including 4 New York Times bestsellers and 5 national bestsellers. His classic 2008 parable, The Go-Giver, co-authored with Bob Berg, earned the 2017 Living Now Book Awards Evergreen Medal for its contribution to positive global change. Anna earned her degree in clinical psychology before going to serve as an educator, therapist, corporate trainer, speaker, and coach. She currently coaches Go-Giver Marriage clients and leads the Go-Giver Marriage Coaches Training Program, training coaches from around the world. So let's welcome to the show, John and Anna.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mary Ann.
Well, it's always such an honor to have you here, John, and talk about your books. And what a treat it is that we get to have Anna here, too, to talk about this. I am so excited. What inspired you both to write this book?
Well, I'll start with that one. You know, I've published over 30 books, but this is the first book that we've done together. And this is just so much fun for us. Anna's been the first reader of every book I've ever written. You know, when the first rough draft comes off the printer, she's the one who picks it up and gives it that first fresh take and lets me know what's working and what could stand for some improvement and, what's great about it. And she's my best cheerleader, but also my best critical eye. So to have her come around the other side of the writing desk and actually, join me in the writing task has been really, really fun and really different. When the first Go-Giver book, back in 2005, the rough draft of the original Go-Giver came rolling out of my desktop printer. Anna picked it up and read it and said, "This is phenomenal. And this would be a great book about relationships. This would be a great book about marriage." And for 17 years, we've been talking about it, dreaming about it, planning it. And it just took a little under 2 decades to bring it into reality.
And for you, Anna, what was that like?
I've been a therapist my entire life. And so I have a deep love of wanting to see marriages make it. And I think that our society and our culture right now has so many narratives about romance and about marriage. And yet the stresses of everyday life are so real. And everyone brings their emotional baggage from their childhood to their marriage, to any intimate relationship they're in. And so it's challenging, and it's the place that I love the most. And so the Go-Giver philosophy is really just this in a nutshell. If you have a spirit of generosity and you're giving in a way that adds value to the other person's life, then your marriage is truly blessed. I mean, it really changes the entire dynamic. And also, it was powerful for me because I closed my practice as a therapist that worked with 2 people and went back to working with just 1 person in the marriage. And the Go-Giver Marriage is really a book where only 1 person in the couple needs to read it and practice the secrets for the entire tone of the marriage to change.
Wow, that is just remarkable. And when you were, Anna, putting this into over the years, adding this to the book as part of the practice that you do, how did that change your writing?
John is a brilliant writer, and I'm blessed that anything that I wrote had a brilliant editor. But one of the greatest things about this was that we really divided the book in half. The front half of the book is the parable, and the second half of the book is called the practice. And the practice unwraps every secret psychologically and gives you the underpinnings of developmental theory and why this secret was important to you as a child and is still important to you as an adult. And then, gives you client examples, if you will, of the ways that the opposite of this secret works and how changing the tone and changing the behavior can shift the marriage so deeply. So it's all about awareness and about, really understanding that love isn't a static thing. Love isn't the romance that you feel in that instant where you really fall in love. Love is a practice. It's an ongoing journey. It doesn't, it's not a state of being.
Well, isn't that the truth? And it's interesting because over, the last 10, 20 years, I mean, relationships and dating has changed so much. John, do you think that this is something that can be used in any relationship?
Yeah, it's funny. We have a dear friend actually, who at one point suggested, she read the manuscript and she said, "Why don't you call this the go-giver relationship?" And, that was tempting because, you can see where theoretically it would cast a wider net. We chose to focus on marriage because people have for years been asking us, what is it with you guys? Like, what's your secret sauce? Why are you so just ridiculously, insanely in love, like teenagers? And we are actually secret here, not teenagers anymore. But so marriage is very important to us, and we think it's a really it's a linchpin of sort of social fabric. But yeah, these principles, we call them 5 secrets. They really apply to any relationship, certainly any long-term committed relationship that is similar to a marriage. But beyond that, you can apply these principles with your kids, with your colleagues, in the workplace, with your business partners. They really are kind of universal relationship principles. So absolutely. And the beauty of it, like Anna said, there's a character in the book called the professor who started out as a marriage therapist. And she at one point chose to shift her practice to become a marriage coach, where she just coached individuals. And that really is a reflection of Anna's real life experience. That, as Anna said, that's one of the beauties of this whole approach. It's very simple. It's very practical. It's not heady. We're not asking you to go through, climb up the top of a mountain and go through 90 days of completely transforming your personality. There's nothing dramatic about it. They're simple, everyday ways of behaving you can put into practice literally in minutes a day. And if both parties aren't on board, both members of the marriage aren't on board with the idea, that's okay. That can still work. Because practically speaking, that is often the situation, isn't it? I mean, frequently you'll have a marriage that's maybe it's in trouble, or maybe it's not in trouble, but it's not all it could be. It's getting stale, or it's getting what we call the long freeze, been married for 5, 6, 7 years, and it just isn't kind of what it was in the beginning. And there's this sense of ennui settling in. Often you have where one person wants to make a change and improve it, and the other one is like not really seeing a problem, or is defensive or resistant, or is just not there. That's okay. You can be in a relationship, apply the principles of this book, and it's going to make a difference. It's going to make, as Anna says, shift the tone of the whole relationship, marriage or otherwise.
And that doesn't mean that there isn't a place for therapy, because sometimes when that person that John's describing, who is deeply ambivalent and possibly deeply wounded, maybe came from an alcoholic family, maybe had, a really brutal parent. Those are people who they've shut off for reasons. That these are not bad reasons. These are often, the way that they survived.
Mm.
And so therapy, we don't want to ever give the impression that we don't believe in therapy, because, having been a therapist for years and having trained with some of the best, I mean, I've really been blessed to have incredible trainers that I've worked with over the years that are marriage experts and that are phenomenal. There's a place for it. And for that person that's deeply ambivalent to dig into their own material and start to uncover what's going on for them, there's a great deal of room in a marriage for deep, deep healing if both parties can be compassionate and can leave the doors open to that kind of change and to understanding. Because sometimes somebody is shut down for a reason. If a woman has experienced, or a man has experienced incest, there's sometimes some real blocks to intimacy. And, there's just so many ways that marriages can get buried by the emotional baggage, is what we call it often, that people bring to their intimate relationships.
Do you feel that this is a book that can be used alongside counseling for people who are, traumatized or, have any type of grief and loss that they're dealing with?
I not only feel that, but I have several friends who are therapists who are so thrilled about the book and were early readers that they plan to give the books to clients because they feel that that the spirit of generosity that's at the base of the original Go-Giver is really a powerful, powerful concept. And all of the secrets are about having a spirit of generosity. We call them secrets, but they're really habits. And just like the original Go-Giver, there's 4 secrets that are about giving, and there's a 5th secret that's counterintuitive. In the original Go-Giver, it was that the first 4 secrets were about giving, and the 5th secret was about receiving. And in this book as well, there's 4 secrets that are all about giving to your spouse in one way or another. The 5th one is counterintuitive and is also about giving, but it's not about giving to another. It's about giving to yourself.
Is that primarily the foundation that you have set for, just this lasting love?
Yes, I'm going to say, it is the whole idea of living with a spirit of generosity. When people ask that question, what's your secret sauce? That was generally our answer. We both are in a place where we approach each other and our relationship with this spirit of generosity. And that's what we call the Pindar's principle in the Go-Giver books. The more you give, the more you have. It's not giving as in self-sacrifice. And I want to make that really clear. We're not talking about being a martyr or denying yourself for the sake of another or oppressing or suppressing your own needs and your own wants to lift somebody else up. That's not the idea at all. In fact, it's the opposite of that. The idea of it is by extending yourself to another person, you grow yourself. In fact, you end up being benefited. That's the Pindar principle. The more you give, the more you have. And all these behaviors, habits, the 5 secrets, they're really all just like facets of a diamond. They're aspects of this core idea of generosity. And here's another model that can help kind of illuminate what it is we're after here in the book. If you imagine you like a circle, and then your spouse or your partner like another circle, there's these 2 people who are whole, independent, self-describing humans. The area where they overlap, like a Venn diagram, describes a 3rd area, and that area is the us. It's like a 3rd living, breathing entity. When you live with another person for a length of time, there grows this kind of 3rd being in the room with you. We call that the us. And at any point in your life together, you're either feeding the us or you're starving the us. So the idea here is living with generosity is not just about being generous with your spouse. It's about being generous with your relationship, with your marriage, with this us. So, for example, if there's an argument comes up, there's an issue of conflict, rather than squaring off into our separate corners and like I'm right and you're wrong, or else you're right and I'm wrong, or whose point of view is going to hold sway, which one of us has the upper hand, who's righter than the other person. The approach we're taking is, okay, we've got a conflict. How do we approach it together? Let's get on the same team, not deny the conflict, but look at the issue and kind of take it apart together. So it's you and me dealing with the us.
That's such a big point because a lot of times you see people become somewhat adversaries of each other just to, be right. And it's like, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Exactly. And, we do it without thinking about it. Honestly, most of this is not even conscious, and it certainly isn't malevolent or with malign intent. We just do it because we start taking each other for granted. We're dealing with other stresses in our lives. When you're first together in that flush of romance in the early weeks and months of being together, it's like your world revolves around this person. Everything they do is perfect, right? But then years go by and stresses happen. You're dealing with kids, or you're dealing with jobs, you're dealing with finances and maybe illnesses and difficulties in the world around you. You start taking each other for granted. and slipping away from that impulse to be on the same team. And you do what you just said, Marianne, you square off without even meaning to. We just do it in the ways that we criticize each other or pick on each other or harp at each other or just, gripe at each other.
And one of the concepts that we talk about, Marianne, in the book is the scorekeeper, because every secret has an opposite. And the reason that the back of the book was so important to us was that if you don't describe the opposite of what this behavior is, this generous behavior, then you really won't understand the things that tear out the foundation. And I'll give you an example, because it's really what we're talking about: criticism. It's so easy neurologically to get yourself on the loop of criticism, of just looking for those little ways that your partner is irritating you today. And you can find them every single day. You can find them. You can find them with kids. You can find them with coworkers. You can find them with your boss. You can find them with the person that is your employee. If you're looking for what they're doing wrong, you will find lots of ways that they're not satisfying your standard. But what does your standard mean anyways? And the flip side of that is to really take the opposite track of, what do I appreciate about this person? How are the ways that I just see them and adore something that they do? Like maybe the way they talk to your children, maybe the way that they always wipe off the kitchen counter after they do things. And it's just a little thing, but it's nice. And, there's just so many ways that you can find to appreciate your spouse or your partner or your coworker or your children. And yet we get so busy with our lives that whatever it is that triggers us, and we talk about the scorekeeper and we talk about triggers, because triggers are real. You get triggered, you're irritated, you're having a bad day, but that's not a reason as an individual to extend it to another. Keep it. It's your irritation. It's not theirs.
Yeah, let me give you a practical example. Let's say the two of you, okay, Marianne, you got you and the other person. One of you, doesn't matter which, it always forgets where you park the car, like when you go into the store, right? So you go into the store, you come out of the store, and it's like one of you is going like, oh my gosh, I can't remember where we parked. That's kind of funny. I heard on a giggle. And it's like, this is the kind of thing that happens where, one person's good at remembering where the car is. The other person is not. A couple of years down the road, the person's going, your spouse is going, what is wrong with you? Why can't you ever remember where the car is? And people always make jokes about which way does the toilet paper roll go? Do you have it with the piece coming out the top or out the bottom? It seems so silly and insignificant, but these silly and insignificant things become mountains that we kind of keep between us. What does it matter if the other person gets lost in the parking lot or doesn't? And so the shift is, instead of saying, what's wrong with you? Why do you do the toilet paper that way? Or why can't you find the car in the parking lot? Or why do you always leave your shoes facing the wrong way, or whatever it is? You can shift that to say, this is why we're together. I can always help you find the car. It's like, yeah, we're different. We have different strengths. We have different failings. We have different blind spots. We have different power spots. And that's like, okay. So the criticism thing, I think our favorite example is we were in the grocery store one day and we were shopping in the produce section, and this elderly couple pushed by with their cart, and we just overheard the man say to his wife, "You always do that." And the look on her face was just so painful. Her face just fell. And we noticed at least half a dozen other people in the store around us, all reacting. Of course, nobody said a word, but we're all thinking the same thing. It's like, oof, this man just laid out this poor woman. And what had she done? I don't know. She'd left the checkbook in the car, or she'd forgotten the list at home, or she'd made a comment that he didn't like, or who knows what she did. I promise and guarantee that whatever it was harmless. But that's how people get over the years if they slip into the habit of criticizing. And the way to avoid the habit of criticizing, or to climb out of that rut and change the habit of criticizing, is to adopt a new habit, which is to appreciate, which is to look for the things about the other person that you think are awesome, that you love, that make you smile, to look for those and point them out. Start building that positive list.
Anna, do you find that that is like a real big change for a lot of people to start looking for the positive because they're kind of so wired to finding the negative?
It is not only a huge change, but I'll share an example that I've been sharing frequently on podcasts because my client gave me permission. I had a client, and I still have this client. She's the most beautiful person, and her marriage has done a 180. But she was a self-described girl with her hands on her hips. She said, I had my hands on my hips before he even came in the door every night. And she said, my bullet list of what he had done wrong that day was just alive and well and ready to shoot. And so in the beginning, she had trouble actually finding things that she appreciated about him. She was so irritated with him, and she felt, she described him as a boy, and, he just wasn't standing up for, being mature and responsible and, just so many things. But in reality, he was bringing home an awesome paycheck and went to work and dutifully, just did an incredible job. I mean, he was getting raises at work because he was such a great guy on that level. So, it was like she felt like he didn't do enough at home. And, the scorekeeper was alive and well is what I'm trying to say. And she was, letting it rip every day. So as she started to unwrap what it was she appreciated about him, the very first thing is actually in our book. She couldn't think of anything. She goes, well, he makes a wicked lasagna. Like that was her first thing. And I said, well, have you ever told him that? And she was like, no, he knows I like his lasagna, and you could feel the tone. The tone was alive and well. But as she started to make a list and she started, putting them in her phone, making lists of things that she saw that he did all the time. Like he's a closet housekeeper, like he works a lot, but he actually does a lot of little cleaning jobs around the house. And she wasn't appreciating them at all. And when she started to really express to him the ways that she was appreciating him, he actually welled up with tears one night. I mean, he said, it just feels like you're grumpy a lot. And I always feel like I'm at the short end of the stick. And he admitted to her that he was feeling the negative impact. And they sat down and just decided on a date night. They decided to start taking better care of each other. And she started expanding her list of things that she appreciated about him and sharing it. So yes, it really changes things. And it's really powerful. When you drop criticism, I mean, let me quote the Gottmans. The Gottmans are like the premier marriage researchers. They've done more research on marriage than anyone in the world. And they call criticism one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And it's so easy to get in the neurological loop where that's all you're looking for. But it's just as easy when you're changing a habit. You don't say, oh, I've got to stop criticizing. You actually look for ways to appreciate, look for ways to build the esteem and the sense of goodness for the other person. And when you do that, you automatically replace the negative loop. You automatically take that neurological loop and you shift it to the positive side. It's a habit. We call them secrets, but these are habits. And when you take these habits on, everything changes.
Do you find that some of these habits are like learned behavior that they picked up as children and how their parents interacted with each other?
Whew. John, can I take that?
I'm just going to sit back. This is all yours.
All right. Well, here's the first rule of thumb. If you try to build intimacy with another person before getting whole on your own, all of your relationships become an attempt to complete yourself. So yes, let me put it in black and white terms. If you had a critical father who you could never do enough to please him and who he continually criticized you, when you get married, you kind of have a choice. Number one, you will attract a person who will either criticize the heck out of you and or you will become that critical person. And in either instance, the marriage suddenly is in crisis because nobody wants to be the person at the hand of that critical person. Nobody wants to be constantly told that they're not doing a good enough job. And by the way, you left your socks on the floor again. Are you ever going to get it that that's not okay? It's like those kinds of comments tear you apart over time. And they are one of the primary reasons people get divorced, is that the number one thing that people cite as the reason they get divorced is that they didn't feel appreciated.
There's this incredible poem by Philip Larkin that starts out, they mess you up, your mom and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. I substituted a more polite word for the word he uses. But it's, I heard Anna once say years ago, and it really stuck with me, you don't get to become a mature adult until the moment you forgive your parents. And you know what? Most of us have parents who really meant well. It's like we all certainly mean well as parents ourselves. But humanity is a tricky thing and life is challenging. And so nobody escapes childhood without some wounds, no matter how happy the household was, no matter how, golden in the retrospect, rear view mirror of nostalgia, you see your childhood. We've all struggled on the journey to become adults. So, yeah, I think that, in many ways, marriage offers an opportunity to see ourselves in a fresh way and find access to healing ourselves in a way we might not be able to do on our own fully.
Do you think, John, that this is the type of book people should read if they are looking to just become better people, so that way when they get into a relationship, they're prepared for the best relationship they can have?
We've been really charmed and really, really delighted, actually, at the number of people we've talked with on podcasts, radio shows, TV shows, and then just in conversation, people who have pre-read the book or who've gotten early copies. At the number of people who said, look, I'm not married, but I need this book. This is really valuable for me. I think the answer to your question is definitely yes. We'd love to see people give this book as engagement gifts, or we'd love to put this book in the hands of people who are just dating and haven't gotten married yet, as well as for people who are already married. And, one of the sort of the target readerships that we particularly like to look at is people who've been married for a few years and maybe approaching that 5, 6, 7 year mark. There's a reason they call it the 7-year itch. Where after the romance is worn off and after the honeymoon is over and after the first flush of getting together has settled, the dust has settled, and now we're dealing with some of the exigencies of life. A lot of people start bumping up against their own material in the context of a marriage at 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. But you're right. I mean, we also have an opportunity to work that out before we get married. I'll tell you, there's a third group, and that is people who were married, got separated or divorced, and are looking at getting married again. And that's a sort of a combination of the two groups, because that's people who've already been through some of the struggles they have in marriage, and they don't want to repeat them. They want to do it over again. That was my case. I was married before. This is not my first marriage. So, people who are not yet married, people who are currently married, and people who are in between marriages. So all three groups. We love working with all three of them.
So Anna, to kind of dovetail with that, do you feel like people who are looking to improve themselves before they look for a serious relationship? Because you talked about how we attract the things that we need to heal ourselves. I was real impressed with that.
Yeah, I feel like if you can open the gates to not only, I kind of feel like everybody needs to do a year or two of therapy in their 20s. And I feel like it's, when you were talking before about, kids and how they come out of their parents' homes, we laugh over the fact that my daughter's been in therapy. Our youngest has been in therapy for several years now. And she and I chortle sometimes over the fact that when she was a young child, I had anxiety that was very real. And I was doing everything I could to try to manage it. But when you have anxiety, that anxiety is riding all over everybody in your life. And so she had clear experience with it. And so I have joked with her about the fact that, she has talked about that with her therapist, but she has great compassion because she's experienced her own anxiety at times. And certainly in job interviews and other places, she's had very real anxiety. And so she has a different understanding of it now because she's had the time to process things and to kind of look at it. I think that if people can read this, and I personally think this would make a great wedding gift or a great engagement gift. And we're about to send it to the Midwest to friends of ours whose one of their children just got engaged. I feel like if people can really understand, because the secrets in the back of the book, we really explain the opposites. And the opposites really are, how will your marriage dismantle itself if you don't pay attention? And so, yes, I feel like anyone who's even thinking about getting into a long-term relationship, it's a book that will startle them because it's simple by design. But when you understand the psychological underpinnings of why these secrets are important and what the opposite of them is, and you'll see yourself in the opposites because, we all do it. So I just think I think it's very important. And we've been hearing from so many readers already, early readers and people who got to preview the book, that, it's had a big shift in their marriage. And one of them was somebody who'd been married for 35 years. And they said, wow, I started practicing these secrets and, we're holding hands again and going for long walks. And, it's like something has come back to life. We're feeling romantic in ways that we haven't for a long time. And, I would never have said that they were in a long freeze, but this is what happens to long-term marriages sometimes. It's like you become roommates and we call it the long freeze simply because the intimacy slows down and it isn't as rich. And in the book, we have a phrase that says, every person is an unexplored continent. There's always something new to discover. And that's actually the truth. And even in marriages that are 30 years old or longer, John just discovered something new about me last week, something that had happened to me as a child. And, he didn't know about. And it's like, there's so many facets to every person on earth.
I think when you approach it that way, there's so much wonder one can have in a relationship that just makes it, as it goes along, the 5 secrets, they're able to really appreciate the person and be present.
Absolutely. And if there's time to talk about another secret, there is another secret I would like to share because I think it's also so significant to a marriage.
Oh, yes.
All right. The 5th secret, as I said, the first 4 secrets are about giving. The 5th secret is counterintuitive. And the 5th secret is called grow. And the common mistake that a lot of people make getting into a relationship, especially when they're in that, sweet kiss of romance, it's like, this relationship is going to give me everything I've always dreamed of. And so they lean into the relationship to get their needs met. And the first time that their spouse disappoints them or is too busy to hang out with them, or, time together starts to wane, they start to feel that sense of like, I made a mistake. This isn't working. What happened? They feel this disappointment. And yet, if you really look at individuation and, differentiation being that we're different individuals with different needs and different wants, but individuation in that we both get to be the individual that we are with our own unique interests. If you keep growing, most people equate growing with, having a fantastic career. Oh, they were really developed at this or that, But the truth is your career is less than 20% of who you are. I mean, it's what you do. And yes, you might care deeply about it in the larger context, but it's the small things that you do, like maybe you write poetry. Maybe you have a hobby of going out with your iPhone and taking close-ups in nature. Maybe you love to shoot portraits of your children. Maybe you like to watercolor. Maybe you have taken on learning how to cook Indian food because you love it, but you've never really learned the basics and the deeper understanding of it. It's all the ways that you become either a Renaissance woman or a Renaissance man. And that is that you allow yourself to develop. You do the personal growth that maybe says, yeah, I've got some control issues because I've got some anxiety. Well, hello, that's something to pay attention to. And I say it because that's a very personal statement for me. And it was something that I really did get, I mean, I did some work on it. But, in all of that personal growth, you are changing, you are becoming a better person, you're becoming a richer, more dimensional person. And what I say to a lot of clients and to a lot of people that we talk to is, when you arrive at 25 or 30 years out in your marriage, if there's nothing new to find, then you have nothing, you aren't bringing as much to the marriage. That when you keep growing, you're bringing back all that growth to the relationship, and your spouse is doing the same, then you become an even richer and more dimensional couple. And that's actually what has happened. John and I have been together for 25 years, and there's been some serious growth on both sides of the fence. I mean, John has he's written 30 books, but, in the last year, he wrote a novel called Steel Fear that was critically acclaimed, got nominated for a Barry Award. And he'd never even considered a novel 20 years ago. Wasn't even in his rearview mirror, let alone his front sights. So, everybody is growing and changing if they give themselves permission. And so that's a really important. And then the flip side of growing is stagnating and becoming that cloying person who's whining at your spouse to pay attention to you because you're bored.
Bored and needy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I've been really struck, Marianne, by, and I'm tempted to say how the world has changed, but it's really true. I mean, several generations ago, you took a job in your 20s, and that was the job that you were in until the day that you died or until the day you retired. The world has sped up so much and become so bewilderingly varied a place. And people don't stay in one job anymore. And that's bewildering and confusing and can be challenging. But there's also a real upside to that, which is that there's a lot of reinvention happening. There's a lot of opportunities to reinvent yourself. And I see this with a lot of our friends in their 40s and 50s and 60s and even 70s and beyond. People who've done one thing who suddenly start doing another thing, a different thing, possibly as a career, or as Anna was saying, as an avocation, but a really strong one. But finding a new facet of themselves that maybe they never even considered in earlier parts of their lives. We were on a show a couple of days ago where the host said he'd heard that everybody who gets married at least 3 times. He says, I'm fortunate that I got married all 3 times to the same spouse. But we all get married, at a certain age. And then we get married again when we have kids. We get married again when the kids move out. And now we're in a whole new situation. And it's true. I mean, marriage goes through phases because we go through phases. Our lives don't stay static. And there is an expression in the book. There's a woman in the book who says, a lot of my friends blame their marriage for their unhappiness, but that's like the soil blaming the tree for its ill health. It's the other way around. The tree's nourishment comes from the soil, while the marriage's nourishment comes from us, from our state. It's like our happiness, our unhappiness, our state of thriving and growing and vibrancy is what feeds the marriage. So like Anna was saying, a lot of people come to this view, probably unconsciously, that they derive their happiness from their marriage, that the marriage gives them meaning, that the marriage gives their life a shape and a focus. And yes, the marriage provides all kinds of things, companionship and many aspects of security and so forth. But really, ultimately, the marriage depends on us. We have to bring growth and nourishment and vibrancy to the marriage. So that's why that fifth secret, all these secrets, we try to provide a really simple, practical framework, like a do this and this and this every day. So that first secret, appreciation, in the book, we start that out saying 3 times a day, find something about your spouse, about your partner that you love, and take a moment to tell them. And, it's fine if you write it, if you put it in your phone as a note, put it on your calendar, or, keep a memo book, whatever reminders you need, tie a string on your finger to gain that habit. It's like the habit of standing up straight or brushing your teeth or fastening the seatbelt in your car. It's a thing you have to do over and over until it becomes second nature. The same is true about this fifth secret, grow. We say find one thing, one way that will nourish your life, that will find something you want and then give yourself that. Find something that you want to see, a direction you want to see your life go in, and then find an activity or a situation or an environment that feeds that, and give yourself that at least once a day. That might mean spending an hour on this new avocation, or spending X, amount of time in this new exercise, or in this new, cooking class, or in this new martial art program, or in this new hiking that you're doing, or in this new photography, like Anna was saying, or whatever it is. Give it to yourself. Find some way to do this thing every day, 7 days a week, so that you're on a path of growth, on a path of self-development, and that you don't just take yourself for granted.
I think that's so important, because how often do people not even realize, their self-worth when it comes to being in relationships?
Yes. So true.
Yeah, that's really a great point.
So, you've got these great, the 5 secrets I found to be very insightful and amazing. How did that foundation even get started?
Long walks from 2005 to now. John and I walk 4 to 5 miles a day every day. And, it's one of the ways that we reconnect at the end of the day. We both have our work, and we're very busy during the early and middle part of the day. And late in the afternoon, or evening even, we go for these long walks. And so we started talking about the 5 secrets. And for me, it was critically important that the 5 secrets not only maintained the go-giver premise of being about giving, but that they really fed developmental theory. Each one has its own psychological underpinnings. And developmental theory, in a nutshell, is what you needed as an infant and as a child, you still need as an adult. So each one has to do with how our narcissistic needs were met or were not met when we were children. And when we talk about narcissism, it doesn't mean that you are a narcissist. It simply means that as a young baby and a young child, you are in a phase of narcissistic development where you are feeding off the people around you who are defining for you your goodness or your badness. And so when you are 2 years old and you have a parent who's yelling at you all the time and saying, no, stop, and just, never ever praising you or giving you the feedback and the generosity of just loving on you in every possible way, there are wounds there. If you have a parent who's depressed, you're going to, and or who is abusive, maybe verbally or physically abusive, you're going to learn to deny your own narcissistic needs in order to watch that parent and become hypercritically aware so that you can make sure you stay out of harm's way. So when a child loses their development in that way, they enter adulthood with a lot of dysfunctional needs, and they don't know how to get them met because they never got them met. So, developmental theory is hugely important. And when people get these needs met, when somebody is consistently appreciating you, and we ask people to start with 3 times a day, but we really like them to expand to 5 or 6 times a day. Because if 5 or 6 times a day, you are saying something to your spouse that is truly nourishing about the way that you appreciate them and see them, it's as powerful as when a baby is laying on a blanket and grandparents and parents are cooing and oogling over top of them and telling them they're the most beautiful baby on earth. This is powerful. And it's easy to dismiss. It's like, oh, yeah, appreciate. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if you do it consistently, the other person starts to feel appreciated at a much deeper level. And when it's spontaneous, like I can tell you 100 things I appreciate about John on any given day. I mean, he's one of the most generous people I ever know. He delivers tea to my bedside table at 7 a.m. every day. And, it's like, these are the things that, you scratch your head and say, have I told you lately how much I enjoy you and how wonderful you are? It's like, and that's a joke between us because we say things like that sometimes to each other. There's so many ways to express your gratitude. It's really a gratitude list, if you will. To express your gratitude to your partner is such a powerful thing. So, and it's so needed. We never outgrow it. And here's the final moment of it. And this is that the most powerful need that we have as children and as adults is to be seen, heard, witnessed, and understood. The drive to be witnessed, powerfully witnessed, is our most significant drive as an adult. It's why people go after being social media mavens and why they go after all kinds of sort of false narratives, because they want to be seen. And so when you have somebody that you're in intimate relationship with, who's constantly taking their opportunity every day to tell you how much they see you and appreciate you, there's such power and significance to that. And there's so many ways that generosity feeds and nourishes a marriage or any relationship.
That's just, along with your book, with both of you, my goodness, there's so much powerful, simple, and useful information in there. I thought it was just such a great read. John and Anna, where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about your work?
Yeah. Oh, I love that you asked the question that way because, yes, we have just launched this book, which we're really excited about, but this is for us more than a book. This is really a calling. And it's, this thing we were just talking about a few minutes ago about growing and reinventing yourself. Well, we just did that. This is, we're living the example of that in that we have done lots of things in business together. We've had lots of sort of different aspects of our careers, but now we're doing this work together. And this is marrying Anna's lifelong work as a marriage therapist, as a marriage coach with, now I get to be part of it too. So this is really a calling for us. And it is our work, not just our book. You can find it all. You can get in touch with us. You can see the book and learn more about the book and about the workshops that we're doing and the training program that we're launching. It's all at our website, which is simply gogivermarriage.com. That's all one word, gogivermarriage.com. And there are links there where you can buy the book. There's an excerpt you can read of the book. And as I mentioned, we've begun giving some workshops. They're live workshops over Zoom, virtual, where we work with individuals and couples in groups of 10, 20, 30 or so, where we go into the 5 secrets in depth and then go interactive and talk about people's individual lives and how to apply these things, how they apply in their lives. And they're really wonderful experiences for us, as well as I hope the people in the workshop. And there's information on those as well at the website.
And in the fall, we're launching the Go Giver Marriage Coaches Training Program because we feel a real calling to train other people to do the work. Not only to be able to lead small groups, but also to be able to work individually with clients, because the work has resonated for so many people that the coaching is a wonderful way for people to sort of really take action. And what I love about it as well is that people can often come in and just do 6 sessions, and they can really in 6 sessions conquer the 5 secrets and really get down to bringing them to life in their marriage. They may want more than 6 sessions than that, but really that's a baseline that they can really get in and and make a big difference in their marriage. So both the workshop called Living the 5 Secrets to Lasting Love and the training program people can find out about on our website.
Well, I just really appreciate your book. I thought it was phenomenal. John and Anna, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
I have been looking forward to this, Marianne. Thank you. I just love spending time with you. This is a great show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for the deep questions.
Well, thank you, John and Anna. It is always such a pleasure to spend time with you and to talk about your new book, The Go-Giver Marriage. The Go-Giver Marriage is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And if you don't see it on the shelf, ask for them to order and, of course, support our indie bookstores. Make sure to get involved in this community and join the Go-Giver Marriage website at gogivermarriage.com for more information and sign up for one of their events. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.